All right, so today we're going to dive into something
Okay.
pretty intense.
Yeah.
AI in warfare.
Yeah.
And we're going way beyond like the whole killer robot thing you see in movies.
Right.
It's actually way more fascinating
Yeah.
when you look at what's actually happening. And we've got some excerpts here from Johnny Harris' video where he talks to a defense expert, Shashank Joshi, and they break down how AI is really like changing the core of how wars are fought.
Yeah. You know what's really striking to me is like even if two sides have like
Hey.
equal weapons,
Okay.
the way they use AI can create like a massive power imbalance. And I think that's a really important point.
Yeah, and to understand that, I think we have to get into this idea of the kill chain,
Yeah.
which is basically like a step-by-step process that kind of defines warfare.
You can think of it this way, like step one, you got to find the enemy.
Right.
Step two, you got to figure out what they're doing.
Okay.
What are their strengths and weaknesses? Step three, how do we engage them? And then
Yeah.
step four, the attack. And then step five, did it work?
So it's like a roadmap for any
Yeah.
military operation.
Basically.
But where does AI fit into this?
Everywhere.
Right.
Every stage of that kill chain is being impacted by AI.
Wow.
And that's what's so fascinating about this topic.
So like one of the biggest places we see this is computer vision, right?
Yeah.
Like in the past, you'd have these armies having to analyze tons of data from satellites,
Right.
drones reports from the field.
Yeah.
But it was a slow process.
It took forever. Like, imagine you have soldiers just like hunched over these grainy images for hours trying to tell if something is a tank or a truck.
Oh, wow.
AI changes that completely.
Okay.
AI can look at that same data
Right.
and in a fraction of the time, pick out enemy movements, identify specific weapon types. It's a whole new level of battlefield awareness.
So it's almost like giving commanders this like superhuman ability to see the battlefield.
In real time. That's
Yeah.
exactly right.
Wow.
And the advantage isn't just speed, it's also scale.
What do you mean?
AI can process just massive amounts of data from multiple sources all at the same time.
Oh.
This gives commanders a much more complete picture of what's happening. But, it goes even further than that.
Well,
AI can actually connect the dots in ways that humans might miss.
like how?
So the video talks about how AI can use data from like unexpected sources like phone records or even things like shipping movements and consumer activity.
That's why. I mean, how do you even make sense of that in a military context?
That's where this idea of data fusion comes in.
Okay.
By combining these seemingly unrelated data points, AI can provide like incredible insights.
Can you give me an example?
Sure, like imagine AI notices a spike in cell phone activity in a particular area, and then it combines that with satellite imagery that shows increased truck traffic that could indicate a troop buildup.
Oh, wow. So it's like putting together this giant puzzle, but the pieces come from all these unexpected places.
Yeah, and that's the power of AI.
But how does that actually help in a war?
So that's where predictive analysis comes in.
Okay.
AI doesn't just show you what's happening now. It can actually anticipate what might happen next.
Wow.
It can identify like vulnerabilities, predict enemy movements, and even suggest the most effective ways to respond.
So it's like AI is taking over the role of a military strategist.
In a way, yeah. It can process information and develop strategies at a speed and scale that humans just can't match.
Wow.
There's this example in the video where an AI system not only identifies a target, but it also figures out the optimal way to destroy it, considering everything from ammunition to even like the fatigue levels of the troops.
It's like having a super intelligent war room advisor.
Yeah.
Like constantly crunching numbers.
Yeah.
Giving you recommendations.
Exactly.
But what happens when you lose that connection?
Oh, yeah.
Like in situations with heavy jamming.
That's where we get into the world of autonomous drones. And that's a topic that's causing a lot of discussion and, frankly, a lot of concern.
Why is that?
Well, AI is basically allowing drones to operate independently.
Really?
Even when they lose communication with their human operators.
So you're saying even if a drone's connection is jammed, the AI can keep it going.
That's right.
On mission.
Exactly. The video describes the scenario where a drone loses contact with its pilot because of enemy jamming.
Right.
But instead of like falling out of the sky, the AI takes over and allows it to continue its mission.
Wow, that's a powerful image. A drone like thinking for itself in the middle of a battle.
Yeah.
It kind of blurs the lines between human control and machine autonomy.
For sure.
And I imagine that raises a whole bunch of questions about the future of warfare.
Yeah, I mean, are we comfortable handing over that level of control to machines?
Especially in a context as sensitive as war.
Right.
That's a question we'll definitely want to explore further.
Definitely.
But before we get into the ethical implications, which are fascinating in their own right, I think it's helpful to ground this discussion in some real-world examples.
Absolutely. I think seeing how this technology is already being used in active conflicts will give us a much better understanding of what's really happening out there and what the implications are for the future of warfare.
Okay, so let's jump into those real-world examples then.
Let's do it. We've touched on a few already, but it's important to see how this technology is playing out on a global scale.
Yeah. What are some of the ways that AI is being used in active conflicts right now?
One of the most prominent examples is the use of AI-powered drones in Ukraine.
Yeah.
I mean, we've all seen those videos
of
drones carrying out attacks with incredible precision.
Yeah, those videos are mind-blowing.
It's really something.
It seems like the level of accuracy is something we haven't really seen before.
And that precision is a direct result of AI algorithms. These drones aren't just remotely controlled.
Yeah.
They're actually capable of identifying targets and making adjustments in real time based on a variety of factors, like wind speed trajectory calculations, even things like nearby structures.
It's like they have a mini supercomputer on board.
Exactly.
Constantly analyzing data and making decisions.
And it's not just about individual drones either.
Okay.
We're starting to see the emergence of what are called drone swarms.
Drone swarms?
Yeah, where multiple drones operate together, coordinated by AI to achieve a specific objective.
That sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie.
I know, right?
What would a drone swarm even look like in a real battle?
Okay, so imagine a swarm of dozens, maybe even hundreds of drones, all working together.
Wow.
Some acting as decoys, others carrying out surveillance, while a smaller group targets specific enemy positions.
That's an incredible amount of coordination.
It is.
It seems like it would be almost impossible to defend against.
That's the point. Drone swarms represent a significant shift in military tactics.
Right.
They can overwhelm traditional defenses, making it incredibly difficult for an adversary to respond effectively.
It sounds like a game changer, but it also makes you wonder about the potential for unintended consequences.
Of course.
What happens if a swarm malfunctions or makes a wrong decision?
That's a valid concern.
Yeah.
And it highlights one of the key challenges with integrating AI into warfare,
which is
ensuring that there's always a level of human oversight.
So it's not just about the technology itself, but also about how we manage and control it.
You got it.
Okay, that makes sense. So another real-world example that we see is the use of AI by the Israeli military.
Right. The IDF has reportedly used AI to generate target lists in Gaza, essentially using algorithms to identify potential targets based on a variety of factors.
It's a pretty controversial topic, to say the least.
It is.
The idea of an algorithm deciding who or what gets targeted raises some serious ethical questions.
Absolutely.
You know, does it have the right to make those decisions?
Right, and it highlights the importance of transparency and accountability when it comes to AI and warfare.
Yeah.
If we're going to use these systems to make life or death decisions, we need to understand how they work, what data they're using, and what biases might be built into their algorithms.
It's a reminder that AI, like any technology, isn't inherently good or bad.
Yeah.
It's a tool.
It is.
And the way it's used ultimately depends on the intentions of the people who wield it.
Exactly. And it's not just about the military using AI.
Okay.
The private sector is playing a growing role as well.
Really?
Companies like Palantir, a data analytics firm, have been developing AI systems for the U.S. military and intelligence agencies.
So the lines between Silicon Valley and the battlefield are starting to blur.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it raises questions about who's ultimately responsible for the development and deployment of these systems. Is it the government? Is it private companies? Is it a shared responsibility?
Those are some really complex questions with no easy answers.
For sure, but one thing's for sure. AI is rapidly changing the landscape of warfare. And it's important to understand not just the technology itself, but also the broader implications of its use.
Absolutely.
It's what makes this topic so fascinating.
Yeah.
It's not just about weapons and algorithms. It's about the future of conflict itself.
Right.
And what role humans will play in a world where machines are increasingly capable of making life or death decisions.
So far, we've focused on the more tangible aspects of AI and warfare, like the drones, the targeting systems, the data analysis.
Right.
But the video also touches on something a little more subtle, but equally important.
What's that?
The impact of AI on military strategy and decision-making.
That's a crucial aspect of this conversation.
Yeah.
AI isn't just about automating tasks, it's about fundamentally changing the way wars are planned and fought.
How so? Can you give us an example?
One way to think about it is through the concept of cognitive warfare, which is essentially using AI to manipulate information, influence public opinion, and even disrupt an enemy's decision-making processes.
So it's kind of like psychological warfare, but on a whole new level.
That's a good way to put it. AI can analyze vast amounts of data, social media posts, news articles, even intercepted communications.
Wow.
To identify vulnerabilities in an enemy's narrative.
Right.
Or to craft targeted propaganda that exploits those vulnerabilities.
So it's not just about bombs and bullets anymore.
No.
It's about using information as a weapon.
Exactly. And AI gives those who wield it an incredible advantage in this new type of warfare.
How so?
Imagine an AI system that can instantly translate enemy propaganda, identify key influencers on social media, and even generate personalized messages designed to sow discord or undermine morale.
That's a pretty chilling thought.
It is.
It seems like a very slippery slope.
It is a slippery slope.
And it makes you wonder where the line is between legitimate information warfare and outright manipulation.
That's the ethical quagmire we find ourselves in.
Right.
As AI becomes more sophisticated, it becomes harder to distinguish between what's real and what's fabricated, between legitimate news and AI-generated propaganda.
It's almost like a new arms race.
It is.
But instead of weapons, it's algorithms and data that are being weaponized.
Exactly. And the battlefield isn't just physical anymore.
Okay.
It extends into the digital realm, into our minds, into the very fabric of our information ecosystem.
So it's not just about who has the most powerful weapons.
Right.
It's about who can control the narrative.
Exactly.
Who can shape the information landscape to their advantage.
That's why understanding AI and warfare is so crucial. It's not just a military issue. It's a societal issue, a political issue, and ultimately an issue that affects all of us.
This has been a pretty intense deep dive so far.
It has.
We've covered a lot of ground from drones and autonomous weapons to the rise of cognitive warfare.
Right.
But there's one more area I think we need to explore.
Okay.
The impact of AI on the human side of warfare.
Absolutely. It's easy to get caught up in the technology itself.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, war is still fought by humans.
Right.
And AI is having a profound impact on the soldiers who are on the front lines.
One of the points that Johnny Harris brings up in the video is the potential for AI to change the nature of combat, making it less physically demanding, but perhaps more psychologically taxing.
That's an important distinction.
Yeah.
We often think of war as being about physical courage and strength.
Right.
But as AI takes over more of the traditional combat roles, the psychological burden on soldiers have increased significantly.
Can you elaborate on that a little more?
So imagine a soldier who's operating a drone from a remote location, maybe thousands of miles from the actual battlefield. They're not physically in harm's way, but they're still making life or death decisions, watching real-time footage of the destruction they're causing.
That's got to take a toll.
It does.
Even if you're not physically present on the battlefield.
Exactly. And then there's the issue of trust. As soldiers become more reliant on AI systems, they're essentially putting their lives in the hands of machines.
That's a huge leap of faith. I imagine it could create a lot of anxiety and uncertainty.
Absolutely. And if an AI system makes a mistake, or if a soldier loses faith in its ability to make the right decisions, the consequences could be disastrous.
It's a reminder that even as we integrate AI into warfare, we can't forget about the human factor.
Right.
Soldiers aren't just robots.
They're not.
They're individuals with their own emotions, fears, and vulnerabilities.
And understanding the psychological impact of AI on soldiers is crucial if we want to ensure their well-being and prevent potential trauma down the line.
This has been a really insightful conversation.
It has.
But there's still so much to unpack.
We've just scratched the surface of this topic.
Yeah. Before we move on, I want to quickly touch on a point you made earlier about the increasing role of private companies in the development of AI for warfare. It's a trend that raises a lot of questions about accountability, and ethics.
Absolutely. It's a crucial aspect of this conversation.
Yeah.
The involvement of private companies blurs the lines of responsibility and raises concerns about potential conflicts of interest.
Can you expand on those concerns a bit? What kind of conflicts of interest are we talking about?
So think about it. Companies like Palantir, which are developing these powerful AI systems, are ultimately driven by profit.
Right.
That's a stark contrast to the traditional view of military development, where the primary motivation is supposed to be national security.
Right. So the question becomes, are these companies prioritizing the development of AI systems that are ethical, transparent, and aligned with the values of a democratic society?
Yeah.
Or are they primarily focused on maximizing profits?
Right.
Even if it means cutting corners or overlooking potential risks?
That's the concern.
That's a troubling thought.
It is.
Are there any safeguards in place
That's the challenge.
to ensure that these companies are acting responsibly?
We're still in the early stages of figuring out how to regulate the development and deployment of AI in warfare, especially when it comes to private sector involvement.
Yeah.
There are calls for greater transparency, for ethical guidelines, for independent oversight, but these are complex issues with no easy solutions.
It's a reminder that the technology is evolving faster than our ability to fully grasp its implications.
Absolutely.
Let alone develop effective regulations.
And the stakes are incredibly high.
They are.
We're talking about the potential for AI to reshape the nature of warfare, to change the balance of power on a global scale, and to have a profound impact on the lives of soldiers and civilians alike.
It's a lot to process.
It is.
And it definitely makes you think about the kind of future we're creating.
It's a future that's full of both promise and peril. AI has the potential to make warfare more precise, to reduce civilian casualties, to deter aggression.
Okay.
But it also carries the risk of unintended consequences.
Right.
Of autonomous weapons spiraling out of control of a world where algorithms dictate the course of conflict.
It's a sobering thought.
It is.
But I think it's important to remember that the future isn't predetermined.
That's right.
The choices we make today will shape the world we inherit tomorrow.
That's the crux of it. We have a responsibility to engage in thoughtful discussions about the role of AI in warfare, to demand transparency and accountability from those who develop and deploy these systems, and to ensure that human judgment remains at the forefront of military decision-making.
It's a complex issue.
It is.
But it's one that we can't afford to ignore.
The future of warfare, and perhaps even the future of humanity, may depend on the choices we make in the coming years.
And on that note, I think it's time to move on to part 3 of this deep dive.
Sounds good.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
But there's still so much to explore.
There is. We'll delve into the potential future of AI in warfare, looking at emerging technologies, strategic implications, and the ongoing debate about the ethics of autonomous weapons.
We've talked about how AI is being used right now, in warfare, that drones, targeting systems, data analysis.
Right.
But what about the future?
Yeah.
What's on the horizon when it comes to AI on the battlefield?
Well, the future of AI in warfare, it sparks both excitement and apprehension. There's a lot we don't know, but one thing's for sure. The pace of technological advancement is accelerating.
So what are some of the potential game changers we might see in the coming years?
One area that's getting a lot of mention is the development of autonomous weapon systems, sometimes called killer robots.
Right, we touched on this earlier with the drone example.
Yeah.
But it seems like there's a big difference between a drone that can operate independently for a short period and a fully autonomous weapon that can make life or death decisions without human intervention.
That's the core of the debate, right? The idea of machines making decisions about who lives and who dies.
Right.
It's deeply unsettling for a lot of people.
Yeah, I can see that.
It raises these fundamental questions about human control, accountability, and the very nature of warfare.
So what are some of the arguments in favor of developing these types of weapons?
Well, proponents argue that autonomous weapons could potentially make warfare more precise, reduce civilian casualties, minimize collateral damage.
So the idea is that machines could, in theory, make more rational and objective decisions than humans in a combat situation.
And they also suggest that these systems could be less susceptible to things like human error, fatigue emotions, that can cloud judgment in the heat of battle.
Makes sense.
They also point to the potential for autonomous weapons to level the playing field,
How so?
giving smaller nations or non-state actors a way to defend themselves against more powerful adversaries.
It's a controversial topic, to say the least.
It is.
What are some of the counter-arguments?
Well, opponents argue that autonomous weapons cross a fundamental ethical line, essentially handing over the power of life and death to machines.
Yeah.
They worry about the potential for these systems to be hacked or malfunction, leading to unintended consequences, or even triggering an accidental war.
It's a scary thought.
It is.
Yeah. And then there's the question of accountability, right?
Exact.
If an autonomous weapon makes a mistake, who's responsible?
Right.
The programmer.
Yeah.
The commander who deployed it.
Yeah. Right. Is it the machine itself?
It's a legal and moral minefield.
It is a minefield.
There are also concerns that autonomous weapons could lower the threshold for conflict, making it easier for nations to go to war if they believe they can do so without risking the lives of their own soldiers.
That's right. That's a real concern.
It seems like the development of autonomous weapons is one of the most pressing issues facing the future of warfare.
It's a topic that's generating intense debate among policymakers, ethicists, military leaders around the world. The decisions we make in the coming years will have far-reaching consequences.
Okay, so shifting gears a bit, what are some of the other emerging technologies that could impact the future of warfare?
One area that's advancing rapidly is artificial intelligence in cyber warfare.
Yep.
We're seeing the development of AI-powered systems that can detect and respond to cyber attacks in real time.
So instead of relying on human analysts to identify and respond to threats, these AI systems can do it automatically.
Yeah.
And at a much faster pace.
Much faster.
Okay.
And it's not just about defense.
Right.
AI is also being used to develop offensive cyber weapons.
Oh, wow.
Essentially algorithms that can exploit vulnerabilities in enemy systems, disrupt communications, or even take control of critical infrastructure.
It sounds like a digital arms race with AI playing a central role.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. The cyber battlefield is becoming increasingly complex and contested.
Yeah.
And AI is giving both sides new tools and tactics to wage war in this digital domain.
This conversation has really highlighted the transformative potential of AI in warfare.
It really has.
It's not just about specific weapons or technologies. It's about a fundamental shift in the way wars are fought, a shift that's happening right now.
And it's a shift that's raising these profound questions about the future of conflict.
Right.
The role of human judgment in warfare, and the very nature of war itself.
As AI continues to evolve at this unprecedented pace, it's crucial that we engage in thoughtful and informed discussions about its implications.
We have to. We need to consider the ethical implications, the potential risks, and the long-term consequences of integrating AI into warfare.
It's a responsibility that extends beyond military leaders and policymakers.
It does.
It's a conversation that we all need to be a part of.
Because ultimately the future of warfare, and perhaps even the future of humanity, will be shaped by the choices we make today.
That's a powerful message to end on.
Yeah.
It's been a fascinating, thought-provoking deep dive into the world of AI and warfare.
It really has.
We've covered a lot of ground. But I think the key takeaway here is that this is an ongoing conversation.
It is.
One that demands our attention and our critical thinking.
As we've seen, the implications are vast.
They are.
The challenges are complex, and the stakes are incredibly high.
Yeah, they are.
It's a topic that deserves our continued exploration and engagement.
And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive. Thanks for joining us.